Think about the last time you decided you're going to finally get your life together.
Oh, the total life overhaul. I know it well.
Right. You probably didn't start small. I mean, you probably downloaded like 3 different habit tracking apps.
Yeah, or bought that really expensive leather journal.
Exactly. You set your alarm for 4:30 in the morning and decided you were gonna, I don't know, learn Mandarin while drinking some highly specific, very expensive green sludge.
And you were totally burned out by Wednesday, right?
Oh, absolutely. By Wednesday, it's all over. We have this tendency to treat daily productivity like we're building a massive skyscraper.
But we forget the foundation.
Yes, instead of pouring the concrete, we obsess over the color of the curtains in the penthouse. We suffer from this massive information overload about how to just simply exist.
It's a modern epidemic, really. I mean,
Hmm.
we are constantly inundated with neurohacking podcasts and these multi-step optimization protocols.
They're exhausting.
They demand incredible amounts of cognitive load just to get out the front door. The irony is that the pursuit of a frictionless, optimized day it's become the primary source of our daily friction.
Which is exactly why, for this deep dive, we are throwing all of that complex machinery right out the window.
Good riddance.
Right. We are looking at a source today that strips away every single piece of jargon, every biohack, and every convoluted system.
So what are we looking at?
We are analyzing a script from an English language learning show called the English Leap Podcast, and we aren't even looking at advanced material here. This is an A1 level lesson.
Oh, wow. Okay, so for anyone unfamiliar with that grading system, A1 is the absolute ground floor of language acquisition.
The very bottom.
Yeah, it's designed for total beginners. So the vocabulary is strictly foundational, the grammar is super simplified, and the sentences are just, short declarative statements about basic reality.
Right. The script simply features 2 characters, Anna and Jake, and they're just talking about what they do in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening.
Sounds pretty basic.
On the surface, yeah, it reads like a children's book. But our mission today is to take a magnifying glass to these incredibly basic sentences.
Because there's more to it.
Way more. When you look at the actual behaviors Anna and Jake are describing, this simple language lesson accidentally, or, maybe completely intentionally, lays out an absolute masterclass in the psychological and biological architecture of energy management.
That's quite a claim for an A1 script.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the script starts with the morning, which they actually call a fresh start.
I like that framing.
Yeah, and immediately Anna and Jake show us 2 entirely different but neurologically sound ways to wake up.
So we see a perfect dichotomy here, right? Between physical activation and cognitive defense.
Yes, let's start with Anna. Her routine focuses almost entirely on overcoming sleep inertia through biology. Her alarm goes off at 6 a.m.
Okay, an early riser.
And the very first sentence she says is, "First, I stretch my body in bed." Not jumping out of bed, mind you. Stretching under the covers.
That is actually fascinating.
Then she gets up, washes her face, brushes her teeth, and eats oatmeal with fruit. Why? Because, as she says, it gives me energy.
Let's look at the mechanism behind that first sentence, though. The stretching.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Well, when you're asleep, particularly in REM sleep, your body is effectively in a state of mild paralysis.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Paralysis?
Yeah, it's called muscle atonia. It basically prevents you from acting out your dreams.
Oh, well, that makes sense. That would be dangerous.
Exactly. So when you wake up, you are still fighting off that lingering paralysis, which we call sleep inertia.
Okay, so she's stretching to fight that.
Right. Striking in bed-like, activating those muscle spindles while you're still horizontal. It gently signals the brain to increase blood pressure and heart rate.
Oh, so it's like a slow wake-up call for the body.
Exactly. You are manually shifting the body from the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest mode, into the sympathetic nervous system, your active mode. And you're doing it without triggering a massive stress response.
But wait, I want to challenge this idea that Anna's approach is actually ideal.
Oh, why is that?
Because it goes against literally every piece of hustle culture advice I've ever heard.
The hustle culture.
Right. The prevailing wisdom is that the second that alarm rings, your feet need to hit the floor. You do not linger. You build immediate forward momentum so you don't fall back asleep.
I've heard that one.
Isn't stretching in bed just like a glorified way of procrastinating the act of waking up?
Well, the problem with the feet immediately on the floor method is that it relies on spiking your cortisol levels through sheer willpower.
Oh, so it's a shock to the system.
It's a completely artificial jolt. When you leap out of bed, gravity pulls blood away from your brain.
Right, you get that busy feeling sometimes.
Exactly. So your heart rate has to spike dramatically to compensate, and you flood your system with stress hormones just to stay upright.
Wow, so you're basically starting your day in a panic.
Yeah. Anna's method is doing the exact same mechanical work, getting blood to the brain and waking up the nervous system. But she's doing it through gentle, localized muscle contraction.
Rather than an adrenaline spike.
Right. She is bringing her biological systems online sequentially. And, her breakfast choice actually proves this intentionality.
The oatmeal and fruit.
Yes.
Complex carbohydrates and natural sugars.
Right. She isn't consuming a massive amount of processed sugar that will, spike her glucose and lead to a huge crash 2 hours later.
Yeah, the mid-morning slump.
Complex carbs break down slowly. They provide a sustained release of energy throughout the morning. She is essentially building a biological runway.
Okay, so Anna manages the physical body, but Jake, who wakes up a half hour later at 6:30 a.m., he takes an entirely different approach.
Was his first move.
Well, his first move is biological, too. He says, I drink a full glass of water. It makes me feel refreshed.
Always a good idea. Hydration is key.
Totally. But the pivotal moment happens when Anna asks him, do you check your phone?
Ah, the smartphone question.
And Jake is emphatic. He says, no. I avoid my phone. I want a peaceful morning to set the tone for my day.
To really understand the profound importance of this little A1 sentence, we have to look at what happens in the brain when you wake up.
Okay, lay it on me.
Your brain waves are transitioning. They're moving from the slow delta waves of deep sleep through the theta waves of twilight consciousness, and finally into the alpha waves of relaxed wakefulness.
Alpha waves. Got it.
It is a highly, highly vulnerable cognitive state.
I've always thought of checking your phone first thing in the morning like this. Imagine you wake up, right? You're still in your pajamas, rubbing the sleep out of your eyes.
A very peaceful image.
Right. And you walk over and open your bedroom door, and instantly 100 completely random strangers rush into your room and start screaming their demands at you.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Look at this tragedy in the news. Why haven't you replied to this work email? Look at how much better my vacation is than yours.
That is a terrifying scenario.
But you would never allow that level of psychological intrusion into your physical bedroom. So why do we voluntarily invite it into our brains through a glass rectangle before we've even had a glass of water?
That analogy hits on the exact neurological danger of the smartphone.
It's an invasion.
It really is. The intrusion forces your brain to skip that relaxed alpha state entirely. You jump straight into high beta waves.
And beta waves are bad.
Well, they're the brain waves associated with high alertness, anxiety, and reactive problem solving.
Ah, so you're instantly stressed.
Exactly. By looking at notifications, you are basically handing the steering wheel of your dopamine system over to an algorithm. You are starting your day in a state of defense.
So when Jake says, I avoid my phone,
He is defending his cognitive baseline. He is choosing to let his brain boot up on its own terms.
what's amazing is that when you put Anna and Jake together, you have the ultimate morning framework. Anna primes the physical engine, and Jake protects the pilot.
It's a perfect synthesis.
But setting a peaceful tone at 7 a.m. is, well, it's the easy part, really.
Oh, sure. The morning is quiet.
The real test of any routine is what happens when the day actually starts throwing punches.
Yeah.
How do you maintain that energy when the emails are piling up and you have back-to-back meetings?
That's where most people fall apart.
Exactly. Which brings us to their afternoon routines.
And the script acknowledges this reality, right?
Yeah. Jake states very simply that he is busy with work and tries to be focused.
Which is hard. Sustained attention is the most expensive resource your brain possesses.
And Anna has a specific protocol for this. She tells Jake, I take short breaks. I walk for 5 minutes to recharge my battery.
5 minutes, that's all?
It's incredibly basic. Just 5 minutes of walking. But Jake has a totally different technique. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, what does Jake do?
Jake introduces a concept that he calls pocket time.
Pocket time. What a brilliant piece of conceptual framing for a beginner language text.
I know, right? He defines it as finding small minutes during the day. And his specific example is, when I wait for the bus, I listen to English. He is actively finding the dead space in his day and filling it with learning. And Anna loves this idea. She responds with, small steps add up to big changes.
What's fascinating here is how these two strategies, Anna's 5-minute walks and Jake's pocket time, address the two completely different ways our brains handle cognitive load.
Wait, there are two different ways.
Yes. Let's look at Anna first. When you focus intensely on a screen or a complex task, You are using the brain's executive attention network.
Okay, executive attention.
And that network tires out rapidly. It burns a lot of energy.
So the break is necessary.
Right. But when Anna takes a 5-minute walk, she isn't just resting in the traditional sense. The act of walking engages a completely different neurological pathway called the default mode network, or DMN.
Oh, I've heard of this. This is the network that activates when you are daydreaming or like letting your mind wander, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The DMN is essentially your brain's background processing software.
So it runs when you're not trying to focus on anything specific.
Precisely. When you step away from the focused task and engage in rhythmic, low-stakes, physical movement like walking, the DMN takes over.
And what is it doing back there?
It starts connecting disparate ideas, it consolidates information, and basically clears out the cognitive cache.
Like restarting your computer.
Yeah. By stepping away for just 5 minutes, Anna is allowing her brain to defragment itself so she can return to her work with restored executive function.
Okay, I am totally on board with Anna's walks. That makes perfect sense.
It's a great strategy.
But I need to heavily push back on Jake's pocket time.
Oh, you don't like pocket time?
I'll be honest, this sounds absolutely miserable to me.
Really? Why?
Well, if I have to spend every single spare minute of my life, every time I am waiting for a bus or standing in line for a coffee or like walking to the bathroom, shoving a podcast or a language lesson into my
You
brain.
feel like it's too much.
Yeah. How is that not just toxic hustle culture? It completely contradicts that peaceful tone he set in the morning. It sounds like he is just terrified of being alone with his own thoughts for 30 seconds.
I see where you're coming from. It is a fine line to walk, and if misapplied, you are entirely correct. It just becomes frantic multitasking.
Exactly. It's exhausting just thinking about it.
But the distinction lies in the underlying motivation and the type of input.
Okay, explain that.
Hustle culture is driven by a fear of falling behind. Right. It is a compulsive need to be productive that actually triggers the stress response.
You're doing it out of anxiety.
Exactly. And it's often accompanied by high dopamine, variable reward inputs, like furiously checking emails or scrolling social media while waiting in line.
You're just constantly pulling the lever on a slot machine.
That's a perfect way to put it. You're waiting for that jackpot of a notification.
Right.
But let's look at Jake's context.
Yeah.
He started his day by proactively defending his mental space.
By not checking his phone.
Right. He is not operating from a deficit.
Yeah.
When he uses his pocket time to listen to an English lesson, he is engaging in a structured, predictable, and intentional act of learning.
It's not a slot machine.
No, it's not. He is exercising agency. He isn't frantically trying to clear his inbox. He is calmly choosing to direct his attention toward a long-term goal.
Okay. The context changes the behavior.
Exactly.
Because he didn't let the 100 strangers into his bedroom at 6:30 a.m. He actually has the cognitive surplus available to learn a language at 3:00 p.m. while waiting for the bus.
That is the crucial link. The afternoon is funded by the morning.
I love that. The afternoon is funded by the morning.
And Anna's reaction, small steps add up to big changes, it highlights the psychological safety of this method.
Right. He's not cramming.
Exactly.
Right.
Jake isn't trying to study for 3 hours every night after work when his brain is completely fried. He is distributing the cognitive load into manageable 5-minute increments throughout the day.
So it's highly sustainable.
Very sustainable.
But, even the most sustainable routines have a breaking point.
Sure, we all get tired eventually.
You can't just infinitely distribute your cognitive load and take 5-minute walks forever. At a certain point, the biology demands a hard stop.
The end of the day.
Right. Which brings us to the final and arguably most difficult phase of their day, the evening wind down.
And this is where we see how disciplined these simple sentences really are. The evening routine is entirely about biological preparation.
Okay, so Jake says he likes to unwind and relax after work.
Good goal.
He eats dinner at 7 p.m., and it's remarkably specific. He says chicken or salad.
Very light.
Then Anna introduces her non-negotiable boundary. She says, after dinner, I do not look at screens.
Hard rule.
She reads a book or listens to music because, as she puts it, it helps my mind wind down.
Simple but effective.
And finally, Jake states his bedtime. 10 p.m. Why? I want to sleep well, so I am ready for a fresh start tomorrow.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, let's start with Jake's dinner at 7:00 p.m. Because the timing and the content are biologically critical.
More than just eating healthy, you mean?
Yeah. Digestion is an incredibly energy-intensive process.
Okay.
Furthermore, in order for your body to initiate deep sleep, your core body temperature actually needs to drop by about 1 to 2 degrees.
I've heard that. That's why people like sleeping in cool rooms.
Exactly. Now, if you eat a heavy, complex meal too close to bedtime, your metabolism is running hot to digest that food.
Oh, so it keeps your temperature up.
Yes, which prevents your core temperature from dropping. By eating a light meal like lean protein or vegetables 3 hours before bed, Jake is ensuring his digestive system is largely offline by the time his head hits the pillow.
Wow. So he's not forcing his body to choose between digesting his dinner and repairing his cells.
Precisely. It's biological prioritization.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, let's look at Anna's rule. I do not look at screens.
The dreaded blue light.
Well, yes. We all know about blue light and how it suppresses the release of melatonin, right? That's the hormone that signals to your body that it is time to sleep.
Right.
But the issue with screens goes much deeper than just the light spectrum.
Because reading a book on an e-reader is like entirely different than scrolling a social feed on a phone, right? Even if the light is similar.
Exactly. The primary antagonist of sleep is cognitive arousal,
Cognitive arousal,
Oh,
meaning
no.
your brain is just too excited.
basically. When you look at a smartphone, you are constantly context switching. In the span of 60 seconds, you might read a funny joke, then see a depressing news headline, and then get an urgent text from your boss.
It's an emotional roller coaster.
It is. Your brain is rapidly pivoting between different emotional states and processing continuous, novel stimuli. This keeps the sympathetic nervous system heavily engaged.
Oh, I see. You are basically inviting the 100 strangers back into your bedroom right before you try to sleep.
Yes, exactly. Whereas Anna's analog activities, reading a physical book or listening to music, they require sustained linear attention.
Linear attention.
A book has a narrative flow. It doesn't throw jarring, unpredictable stimuli at you. This linear focus acts as a cognitive funnel.
The funnel.
It narrows your brain's processing load and naturally guides it back down into those slower alpha and theta brainwave states we talked about earlier.
She is purposefully engineering a soft landing.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we arrive at the most profound insight in this entire A1 script.
What's that?
Look at Jake's final sentence. He goes to bed at 10:00 p.m. So I am ready for a fresh start tomorrow. The script began with the morning being labeled the fresh start.
Right.
But Jake reveals the hidden truth of human biology here. Tomorrow doesn't start when the alarm goes off. Tomorrow starts tonight.
Oh, wow. So the starting line for Tuesday is actually Monday night.
Yes. The architecture of energy management is completely cyclical. You cannot hack a terrible night's sleep with a complicated morning routine.
No matter how much green sludge you drink.
Right. Jake's ability to wake up, drink water, and avoid his phone at 6:30 a.m. is entirely dependent on the fact that he shut down his digestive system at 7 p.m. and went to sleep at 10 p.m.
The discipline of the evening creates the freedom of the morning.
Beautifully said.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out from this script, a script designed literally to teach absolute beginners how to speak English, we don't find a childish approach to the day.
Not at all.
We find a devastatingly effective, highly resilient framework for adult life.
It's incredibly robust.
Wake up and transition your nervous system gently. Defend your cognitive baseline from digital intrusion. Step away from your work to let your brain defragment. Reclaim lost transitional moments for intentional growth. Eat early enough to allow your body to cool down. And trade the erratic dopamine of screens for the linear calm of a book.
And notice, none of these actions require a subscription model.
No apps.
None of them require specialized equipment. They require a willingness to stop complicating the process. The most effective interventions are often the most fundamental.
You do not need overwhelming 50-step systems to live an intentional life. The masterclass was hiding right there in plain sight.
It really was.
Now, at the very end of this source material, the creators of the English Leap podcast ask their students to write one simple sentence in the comments about their morning routine.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, they give the example, I drink coffee at 7 a.m. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to issue that exact same challenge to you listening right now.
A little homework.
Exactly. If you had to distill your foundational morning habit into one single unbreakable sentence, what would it be? What is the one action that protects your baseline?
You know, this raises an important question to leave you with.
Yeah.
If you were forced to strip away all the complex jargon, all the intellectual excuses, and all the performative busy work of your adult life,
Yeah.
and you had to describe what you actually do every single day using only A1 beginner English,
Yeah.
would you be proud of what those simple sentences reveal about your true priorities?
Wow, it's a terrifyingly clear mirror.
It forces total honesty.
It really does, because when you break your life down to its absolute simplest terms, you cannot hide behind being busy. It is just you, your actions, and whether or not you are building a life you actually want to wake up to.